Today's October 2nd, 2018. Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from New York City. A packed show for you today. Jason Van Dyke, Chicago police officer who shot and killed Laquan McDonald, took the stand today to explain what took place on that night several years ago when he shot and killed Laquan McDonald. Of course, he has been charged with murder in that particular case. We will break down that story and also get a live report from a reporter with WGN Radio who's been covering the trial. Also, four powerful black women heavily involved in Democratic politics. They have joined together to put their story in one book. For color girls who have considered politics, trust me, you want to hear this conversation. So we'll be joined by Donald Brazil, Yolanda Caraway, Leah Daughtry, and Mignon Moore. They, of course, will be in our D.C. studios. Also, folks, Tucker Carlson last night made a remark about the MLK Memorial and the issue of white as a reminder of white folks about racism. I'm going to take Tucker Carlson to school because it is abundantly clear he has no understanding of the history of the MLK Memorial. So, Tucker, my suggestion, get a pen and pad because it's time for you to take some notes. Also, folks, Donald Trump said that it's a dangerous world for young men who are accused of crimes they did not commit. He's probably talking about white men. I'm going to explain to you why Donald Trump is right and wrong and remind him of a group of men of color who he did not feel the same way about. Folks, it is a packed show. Roland Martin Unfiltered. It's time to bring the funk. Let's go.
Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Folks, big day in Chicago as Jason Van Dyke, the Chicago police officer who shot and killed Laquan McDonald, took the stand in his own defense. Many folks were wondering whether he was going to do so. Well, that did happen today. It is one more effort by the defense team to try to persuade this jury that Van Dyke should not be convicted of murder. Of course, he pumped 16 bullets into Laquan McDonald. You also recall the city of Chicago did not want any of us to see the video of Laquan McDonald being shot. They fought several years for that video to be released. They finally had to do so after intense pressure from media organizations. And when that video came out, it completely contradicted the story of Chicago police officers who said Laquan McDonald was charging them with a knife. We saw the dash cam video, and it showed McDonald walking away from Officer Jason Van Dyke. An account, so again, folks have been questioning Chicago police, their actions this entire time. Joining us right now is Kathy Cheney of the Chicago Sun-Times. She has been with us several times with regards to this case. Kathy, tell us, what was it like in the courtroom today as Jason Van Dyke went to the witness stand to testify in his own behalf to save himself from being convicted of murder?
It was pretty much, it was a mess, just to put it bluntly. People likened him to Brett Kavanaugh crying on the stand. Just about everything that he said contradicted everything that was in the video. He tried his best. I have to give it to his defense team. They tried their best to make it seem like he was in fear for his life, that he had no choice but to unload his weapon, and it just didn't work because prosecution came back and countered everything, and everything comes down to that video, and you can't dispute that. But Jason Van Dyke says, well, the video doesn't show his perspective. And I'm sitting there like, what perspective are you talking about? Because the video is quite clear. So, of course, it's not going to show the perspective that you wish that you had after everything happened.
Kathy, wasn't it a dash cam video that was from his car?
Exactly. So we're trying to figure out, what are you talking about? The video doesn't show his perspective. The dash cam video shows what happened. It's pretty clear. So his perspective is irrelevant. It shows what happened. And it's something that he just can't come to terms with. He just actually just said, you know what, I messed up. I think people have been like, okay, at least you admitted that. But his perspective, the dash cam video, pretty clear, cut, dry, black, white, simple, completely simple. You can't dispute it.
Kathy, describe for us the scene in the courtroom. Obviously, you had Chicago cops there in support of Van Dyke. Folks, the family and the community on the Laquan McDonald side, how did they react to what took place?
Oh, you know what? As with any other big cop case, when cops are in the room supporting their brother in blue, they look kind of stoic. They don't show the emotion of, oh man, he shouldn't have said that, or, he kind of messed up. They put on a united front. So that's all that you will ever see, when cops are in the courtroom or outside, in support of one of their own that's on the stand testifying, that's in, a lot of trouble. So you can't read the emotions. They will never give you the satisfaction of them saying, oh man, he messed up or something like that. They won't give you that satisfaction at all.
Where we go now, obviously he's testified. Has the defense rested, or will they expect to rest tomorrow?
They're expected to rest tomorrow. Like pretty much all of the arguments are over today. But they'll go tomorrow and want, all of the evidence entered in, the exhibits, and then the defense will rest, and then the prosecution will come back with its rebuttal, and then maybe by the end of the week, we may have something. We may have something by the end of the week. So it's up in the air right now because you never know how juries can go. The makeup of this jury is pretty white. So we don't know. It's kind of scary right now. And Father Michael Flager from St. Sabina, he said the other day that if Van Dyke is acquitted, he's calling for a shutdown on the whole city. He's like, he doesn't want kids to go to school. He wants stores to close. He wants peaceful protests, but he wants the city shut down if Van Dyke is acquitted, and he's not playing. And he's getting growing support for that.
And last question for you, what exactly is the makeup of this jury?
It is one African American. I believe there are 2 or 3 Latinos, 1 Asian, and everyone else is white. So it's quite telling. It's quite telling of how the jury makeup is. And it's another reason why a lot of people think that he opted for a jury trial instead of a bench trial because of the makeup of the jury. Looks like it's skewing largely in his favor.
I do have, again, just one more question. When you mentioned the prosecution will offer their rebuttal, obviously when he took the stand, they went right after him. What do you expect them to focus on in their rebuttal? Because based upon all accounts, the defense team was just flailing away, even in their entire defense.
Oh, absolutely. So, what we are trying to figure out what the rebuttal of the prosecution will be, but it will largely rest on what the defense says tomorrow in their closing arguments. So we're really hoping to see what they say about that, because everything that Van Dyke said on the stand today, the prosecution came back and said, okay, didn't you say this happened? Oh, I don't remember. Then he's dabbing away tears. And we're like, really? Come on, stop it. So hopefully we'll know more about what the prosecution's rebuttal will be after we hear closing arguments tomorrow.
All right, then, Kathy Chaney, Chicago Sun-Times, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Folks, politics is a very difficult sport, if you will. It has its ups and downs, wins and losses. Well, my next 4 guests, they know exactly what that is like, but they also have a very unique perspective, being 4 Black women being at the center of Democratic politics over the last 30-some-odd years. Many of them started very young, and of course now they are, I won't call them seasoned saints, but they have been, that's what we call them in the church. As folks get older, they're still involved in politics, and they have a very unique story. And a new book is out, of course, that details their story, and it's called For Colored Girls Who Have Considered politics. And of course, the four of them joined us right now. Donna Brazile, she's a political analyst, also former chair of the Democratic National Committee. Yolanda Caraway is the founder and CEO of the consulting group, the Caraway Group. Also, Leah Daughtry, a political activist and former chair and CEO of the Democratic National Convention. And Mignon Moore, one of the founders of Women Building for the Future. She heads the local and state practices for the Dewey Square Group. They join us all right now. How y'all doing?
Hey.
Great. Hey, man.
Hey, Roland.
So first of all, yes.
How you doing?
I'm good here in New York. I was in LA yesterday, and so traveling like crazy, but glad to have y'all here to talk about your new book, to talk about some of these stories. But the first thing I got to ask, who came up with the title of y'all group, Four Colored Girls?
Well, it goes back to our period of time in the Dukakis campaign in 1988. Mignon and I were both involved in that campaign, and there was an incident where the senior leadership of the campaign decided to move on one floor, which left many of the other staffers, including Mignon and I, on a different floor. That evening, after cocktail hour, we went up to the quote-unquote the upper chamber and decided to turn a very important conference room into a meeting room, and we called it For Color Girls. And underneath we said, "We shall not be moved." So that's how it began, and the rest, as they say, is a little bit of recent history as well.
I can't hear him. Did I lose him? We can't hear you.
Well, look, I think this is one of those moments where we understand the importance of black women. Black women are breaking barriers at all levels of American politics. Stacey Abrams, who is poised to become the first African-American ever to win a gubernatorial seat. So we're excited about this political year that we're about to embark upon. But more importantly, as Mignon will tell you, or Leah or Yolanda, we're excited that in addition to black women running, black women are voting at record levels across the country.
So here's the question I have. So who came in first? And so the four of you, so who came into the DNC first, and then how did the rest of you then matriculate, and then how did y'all friendship form? Give us the backstory.
I was the first one to work at the DNC in the 1980s. I worked for then Congresswoman Barbara Mikulski, and her chief of staff, Ann Lewis, was offered a job as political director for the DNC right after Jimmy Carter lost. And she took me over there with her. So that was how I got to the DNC. But before I got to the DNC, when I was working for Congresswoman Mikulski, I had a very low-level job, and it was really funny. One day somebody came in and said, "Well, there's a lady out here. Would you mind coming to meet with her?" And I couldn't figure out why they were asking me to meet with her. So I went out, and it was Donna. Then I said, "Okay, that's it. I get it now." But we became fast friends after that, and then the rest of us met along the way.
So Mignon and Leah, how did the two of you then become involved with the DNC?
Well, I first came to the DNC after I'd been on Capitol Hill for 4 years working for my hometown Congressman Ed Towns, and I left the Hill to go to work for Yolanda at the DNC to help with the site selection for the 1992 convention. I knew of Yolanda and Donna and Mignon because we were all connected through the Jackson campaign. And so my father, who was intimately involved with Reverend Jackson's campaign, told me about them. So I had some familiarity, at least with their names and with their work, because they were held up to me as women that I needed to connect with, and I needed to follow along as I was building my own career.
Mignon?
I came in under the first Clinton administration. I was actually working for the Rainbow Coalition, and when President Clinton was elected, David Wilhelm was the chair of the party, and he requested from Reverend Jackson he requested, and that's a different kind of hire. He requested that I come to the DNC because I had, I had done so much work during the Clinton campaign. So I went to that's how I came to the DNC. And then I did a number of different jobs, and ultimately I ended up at the White House.
I have explained to people on many occasions that when we're talking about Democratic politics over the last 30, 40 years, that there has been no greater figure specifically when it comes to black folks than Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. You could, first of all, of course, you can say in the early 70s, it was Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. She decides to run for president. Then, of course, then you go into the 80s. Those two runs in 84 and 88. Not only did they change the face of the party and the issues, but also, as several of you already said, it was Reverend Jackson who brought in this whole new wave of young black men, black women, folks who otherwise did not get a shot, but also very progressive white folks who also had an opportunity to run state campaigns, former Senator Paul Wellstone. So talk about, again, how vital Reverend Jackson was to your careers and also advancing the interests of black folks in the Democratic Party.
I got involved in the Jackson campaign in November of 1983 when Reverend Jackson decided to run for president. It was a historic time coming off the win by Harold Washington in the city of Chicago. Mignon is familiar with that campaign. Reverend Jackson not only competed in all 50 states, but he won delegates. As a result of that historic campaign where we registered new voters, Reverend Jackson was able to change the rules of the Democratic Party, open up the process to previously denied individuals to serve. But I want to say on a personal note, and I think we all can attest to this, Reverend Jackson gave us not just a seat at the table, but he made us players. And I am, to this day, I am forever grateful for his leadership, his mentorship, but more importantly, his ability to recognize that young African Americans, young Hispanics, young openly gays and lesbians, and everyone else, Reverend saw the rainbow before we understood we could get there.
I went to work for Reverend Jackson from the DNC after I had managed the what was called the Fairness Commission, which was the Rules Commission for the next presidential campaign. One of the things I think that they lacked in '84 was they didn't really understand party politics. They didn't understand the rules. So he was determined this time to bring in people who knew how to deal with all of this, and it made such a huge difference. I mean, Jesse, you look back, and he almost won. We got to Michigan, and he won Michigan. We were saying, oh my goodness, we might really win this thing.
But I think the other key thing about Reverend Jackson's campaign, besides that he opened the doors and allowed more people to come in, as he called it, democratizing the democracy, but he paid attention to the rules.
Yes.
He used to tell us that you got to know the rules in order to know how to change the rules. And through his candidacy, he changed the fundamental way that the Democratic Party functioned. He's the reason that we don't have winner take all.
That's right.
Primaries anymore. He's the reason that we strengthened the numbers of African Americans and people of color as superdelegates.
Right.
That was Reverend Jackson who insisted, after his success in his campaigns, that the party had to change the way that it did its regular business, the business of electing a president. And he doesn't get as much of the credit as he should, but really today's candidates run on the basis and on the foundation of the rules that Reverend Jackson changed inside the party.
Well, I had to explain to people that the reality is, if you study the 2008 election, if the 2008 election was under the old rules, Hillary Clinton is a Democratic nominee because she won New Hampshire, she then won Nevada, she won the major states like Texas, California, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. And so under the old rules, winner take all, she would have taken all of those delegates, and that would have been a huge momentum for her to be able to win the nomination. And so I tell folks all the time, you can be excited that President Barack Obama became the first black president, but if Reverend Jackson and Dr. Ron Walters and Ron Brown, if they don't change those rules in 1988, there is no Obama presidency. in 2008.
Correct.
That's correct.
That's absolutely correct, Roland, because I was actually on the 88 campaign. And now that I am off the campaign and I am on the Rules Committee at the DNC, you understand just how critical changing those rules have become to the party and to changing the face of the party. I mean, you're absolutely correct when you say there would not have been a nomination for Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton, for that matter, because we can't compete at that level. Women can't compete at that level. And I think that, you know, history will write this story, I think, very favorably for him. Even though we have young people that weren't even born when Reverend Jackson ran in 94 and 98, so, I mean, 84 and 88, and they have no concept or clue as to what he did. Not only did he usher in a new set of rules, he also ushered in a new set of African-American, Latino, women, as Donna said, politicians. So I think that, you know, we still see the remnants of his work, and hopefully it will go on for a couple of other decades.
You know, Roland, after that 1998 campaign, 1988 campaign, there were, we had almost a black mayor in almost every urban city. We had more black people running for office that, and you know, and I know I spoke personally to some of them, and the late Bill Gray said on the floor of the convention in 1984, I'm going to run for budget chair. And that's something that had never been done. But he said, if Jesse can do this, I can do that. And a whole lot of people said that.
Let's not forget Fannie Lou Hamer, who in 1964 insisted on having the Mississippi delegation have a seat at the table. There are so many men and women who dared to make a difference inside the Democratic Party, but Jesse Jackson clearly in the last 30 years opened it up, made it a more Democratic party, and gave so many people a seat at the table.
Got to ask y'all this. I mean, clearly politics is a rough and tumble sport. And so give me an example where y'all had to get real color. and y'all had to let some white folks in the Democratic Party know, no.
How much time you have?
Yeah, right.
We did it 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. We will always stand up. But yeah.
There's no.
Yolanda,
I have an example. I have an example. In the Virginia primaries, we technically won the most delegates. But the white state chair wanted to be the head of the delegation. And, you know, I had worked for the DNC, so everybody knew me, and now I was working for Jesse, so I in another hat. He wanted to be the head of the delegation so badly, but we would not say, we won. It's ours. We're going to be the head of the delegation.
Well, and speaking of Virginia, I mean, when the lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax, they wanted him to sign a piece of paper saying that he would not run again. They wouldn't put his name on the flyers, and we protested that. We have never been what you would call the silent troopers. We have been the political warriors and people who cared to make a difference. We believe in service, and we believe in our people and the cause of justice and equality for all.
Roland, we believe in disturbing the comfortable. That's what we believe.
That's true, yes. And I'll give you an example from when Ron Brown was chair. We had some state party chairs who were not happy that a black man was the chair of the Democratic National Committee. And there was one in particular, and I talk about it in the book, the state chair of Alabama, who told Ron Brown he was not welcome in the state of Alabama, which of course meant that we were going to Alabama and having a fundraiser anyway. And we did that. We had to find someone who was bold enough to host it, and I was responsible for putting that fundraiser together. And in the end, we exceeded our goals. Ron Brown came in there like Grant went through Richmond, and we had a wonderful fundraiser. And at the end, the state party chair of Alabama rolled himself up to the site and asked for admittance. And I told the chair, "What do you want to do?" He said, "Let him in." And we let him in, and Ron Brown was very gracious. But we never had any more trouble out of the state chairs after that incident.
A former chair decided that they wanted to put on a quote-unquote a staff list, and we saw that it included only black staffers, and we protested that, and we saved their jobs. So whether it's in the political realm when people are running for office or internally with the staff at the DNC, we care about the party, we care about democracy, and we care about our country. 2004,
Senator John Kerry, he is the Democratic nominee. And my understanding is that, now this probably might get a little messy here in the black people space, that he had decided that he was going to choose Kwesi Mfume to give the keynote address, this major speech. And of course, Kwesi Mfume was going to launch his Senate bid from Maryland. And I understand that 4 colored women went to John Kerry and said, you know what, you really ought to pick this guy out of Illinois to give that keynote speech.
That was Mignon can probably attest to that, because I credit Mignon with introducing us to Barack Obama, and I guess she might credit Hillary Clinton of introducing her to Barack Obama, but she's from Illinois, so I'll pass the mic to Mignon.
Well, I don't want you to believe that it was Kwesi versus Barack Obama. In fact, the story is actually a little bit different. In fact, they were looking for someone that would not actually agitate the CBC. They could, I mean, you could pick a Kwesi and he would have been fabulous, but then you could have picked any number of the Congressional Black Caucus members. So we came up with, well, you know, he's going to be the next senator. First, I mean, we hadn't had a senator in a long time.
Since Carroll.
Yeah, since Carroll in the state, in the Senate, and so that's how he became. That's how his name got into the mix.
Alexis Herman and Bill Lynch were also very important in that decision-making process.
So it's safe to say that President Barack Obama, he owes a whole lot of black folks, including y'all, for making that possible, because that's what vaulted him on the national stage and paved the way for that 2008 run.
I'm sure he would credit his talent and the people of Illinois who elected him, but we sisters here, we also believed in him, and we wanted to see this young politician move forward in American politics, and so we did recommend him highly.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you this here? When you look at what's happening right now, mainstream media, white folks, they were like, oh my God, look what happened in Alabama. Look what black women did in Alabama. And black folks are going, y'all late. So this idea that like it was this newfangled thing that black women were organizing and mobilizing and raising money and getting the vote out, for black folks, that wasn't a new story.
Right.
That's right. You know, for the last several cycles, it is an established fact that black women are the largest and most consistent voting bloc in the nation. We investigate the candidates, we know what the issues are, and we show up and vote. And not only do we vote, we take people with us to vote. We spread the word. We are our own, the modern day version of the African drum. So all you got to do is give us the message, and we believe in it, we will take people out. So you're absolutely right. This is not new. We've been carrying the nation on our back for many years, decades, centuries, in fact. And it's less about us trying to save the nation than we're trying to save ourselves. And we know that when we save ourselves, we save our communities, and that in turn saves the nation. So this is not a new thing. I think what you see now is black women choosing to step even further in the forefront by running for office. Stacey Abrams, Tish James, Lauren Underwood, Lucy McBath, the list goes on and on and on of black women who are saying, we're going to change this. It's not enough for us to vote. Now we're ready to lead in an out front electoral way. And so we're running for office and we're winning.
What is your advice? No, I'll ask it this way. What can a young brother or a young sister who is interested in either running for office, who is interested in either working in politics in an official capacity, whether it's for a politician or within the party, or even somebody who just wants to be engaged in the political process, what's the one thing, the most important thing they should learn from this book?
Well, I think it's actually two different questions, because if you want to run for office, I would say that you want to prepare, and it's especially important for our candidates to prepare because, one, they normally don't have the money. Two, they have to almost convince their own people that they can win. We've seen that over and over again. But three, we want them to have some staying power. So I would say they have to prepare, and that's something that I say to our candidates all the time with great joy. Please prepare. And I think for people that just want to get involved in politics, I just say get involved as a volunteer. Right. That's how I started out. I started volunteering for Harold Washington's campaign, and I became his youth director. I had no idea what being a youth director was, but I knew that I wanted to be involved in politics, so I took myself down to his office every day and just volunteered. And then you have mentors like we had, and so they will help you swing the door open if they see that you're really committed to it and you have staying power.
I also hope that what they will take from the book is our friendship, the fact that we've had each other's back, that we've been through a lot of campaigns, but not just political campaigns. I mean, standing together as we went up to the Capitol for Rosa Parks' line in state. We were there because she was there for us. And so it's important that they also take away the story of our friendship, the story of our faith, and also the story of our own resiliency. So I think those are important reminders in the book as well.
What do y'all wish you knew then that you know now?
Well, Leah always she's the preacher in the bunch, so I think she
the bunch.
She's a preacher. I'm the sinner in need of preaching and some other things.
You know, I think I wish I'd known when I was younger that I wish I'd taken more chances. If I could talk back to my 20-year-old self, I'd say be brave, be braver. You are stronger, smarter than you think you are, than you know you are. And so take some chances, step out there, push a little. I mean, I was already bossy. I'm the oldest of four. So, you know, I don't have a problem telling people what to do, but I tried to temper that some when I was younger, and I wish I hadn't. I wish I'd been a little more strident in my youth. And if I had any idea what I'd be able to achieve I probably wouldn't have believed it, but you know that's how God works. He never shows you the whole picture because you go screaming into the night. So I wish I had. If I could talk back to my 20-year-olds, I'd say be brave. You're smarter than you know.
Yeah.
Well, I would talk back to that kid 10 years ago, Roland, when Barack Obama was elected. I think I had no idea this country would face such a severe backlash, and we would go back to even a time that many of us never saw as children growing up. We should have been better prepared in 2008 for what was to come after electing our first African-American president. So I would go back into that era to make sure that we could have put down some more structural, what I call some structural pillars that could have helped us through this period of disruption and chaos that we're now experiencing.
And to add on to what Donna said, I think we just, we went to sleep at the wheel. You know, we were comfortable and happy. We had our president, and you know, I guess everybody said, okay, you got your 40 acres and the mules, so this is it. And we got lazy, and we didn't know what was going on in the rest of the country with other people.
Well, I damn sure tried to remind some folks.
Oh yeah, I know you did.
You still reminded people, Roland.
You sure did.
Well, and thank you for your leadership and your friendship.
Well, I appreciate that. We'll keep pushing that. Last question before I go to my panel, and this is very simple. There's somebody watching who is saying, okay, the four of y'all done what y'all supposed to do, now get out of the way. How do you deal with that when people say that, let the next generation come in, there's no place for you? I got that question this weekend when I was in Texas. Somebody asked me that question, and I made the point that I said, there's a place for young and old. There's a place for middle age, younger age. But how would you answer that when if someone says, the four of you all should just ride off into the sunset and let somebody else do the work? How would you answer that?
I say to these young people, the leadership line is short. I don't know who's in your way. Just get in the line. If you don't want to get in line, lead the line. But I can assure you, if you just step out there, you will have your place, whatever that place you think it is. Just you worry about you. Let us worry about us. But you worry about you. And I also tell them to learn their history, because if you learn your history, you won't be so quick to try to dismantle your history, because we believe history is unbroken continuity.
I believe in the Bank of Justice. You know, Roland, over the years that we've been attending conventions, I've been to every Democratic convention since 1984, we set up what we call the Bank of Justice. The Bank of Justice was to allow anyone that we knew and didn't even know to come and experience history. When Leah was in charge of those conventions, I would call her early in the morning and say, Leah, I need 20 tickets. And I didn't know where she came up. Mignon, I need 10. And then we would hustle and find more, because we knew at the end of the day somebody would show up without a ticket because they wanted to witness history. So I tell my young students and I tell my friends, come on in, the Bank of Justice, we're still looking for more tellers.
And I say, Roland, you know, the scripture says he calls the young because they're strong, and he calls the old because they know the way. At this point in our community and our people's history, we don't have anybody to waste, and we don't have any time to waste. We don't have time to waste by moving people who know the way off the scene, and we don't have people to waste by saying that certain set of folks, because of their age, because of their geography, are not valuable to our people's struggle for self-determination and justice. Everybody needs to be at the table. We need all comers, all towns. If you're willing to work, come to the table. Let's go. Our people have needs, and we are in a position to help them be fulfilled.
And I frankly learned as much from the young people as I think they learned from me. I mean, we really gather from each other.
Hey, Roland, the other day I was called the OG. I had to turn around and ask Yolanda and Leah, what's an OG? So I'm proud they called me an OG.
I was proud I knew what an OG was.
Yeah, me too.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Y'all got it wrong. They're supposed to call y'all OCG, Old Color Girl.
Well, we're OCG. OCG, hashtag OCG.
Right.
Thank you, Roland.
Yeah, the book is called For Color Girls Who Have Considered Politics. Donna Brazile, Yolanda Caraway, Leah Daughtry, Mignon Moore. We certainly appreciate you being a Roland Martin Unfiltered. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
so much.
All right, folks, be sure to get the book. Gonna go to a break. When I come back, I'm gonna deal with Tucker Carlson and his whole white nationalism and how he has no clue about how the hell the King Memorial actually started. I'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Y'all might want to buckle up.
To be born free in a society and not be born free is a lie. Writer and activist James Baldwin.
Over the weekend, I was in Dallas for the Prairie View Grambling State Fair Classic game, and our hashtag HBCU Given Day School is Grambling State University. If you want to support Grambling State, be sure to go to www.gram.edu, of course. And if you are a graduate of Grambling, send a check back. Don't just get excited about that game or going home for homecoming. It's important that we also financially fund our institutions to ensure they are there. Folks, Tucker Carlson, of course, is on Fox News, and for the last several months, he has really picked up the mantle of Bill O'Reilly, and he has been caping for all of the aggrieved white men in America. Well, last night they were having a conversation about Brett Kavanaugh, and this issue came up, and he made this point about the issue of race, and then he decided to bring up the MLK Memorial for some reason. Watch this.
Democrats aren't looking for justice here. They want a revolution. For 60 years, they have been telling us that it is immoral to judge people by their skin color, and they were right about that, absolutely right. They put up a monument to Martin Luther King on the National Mall just in case we forgot.
Okay, I want you to play that again, because I want you to hear it again.
Democrats aren't looking for justice here. They want a revolution. For 60 years, they have been telling us that it is immoral to judge people by their skin color, and they were right about that, absolutely right. They put up a monument to Martin Luther King on the National Mall just in case we forgot.
Really? So Democrats, white progressives, put up a memorial to Dr. King to remind folks about this issue. Really, Tucker? Are you that idiotic and clueless? Do you even have anybody over at Fox News who has the ability to actually research before you open your mouth? For somebody who is the son of a journalist, somebody who is supposedly so talented and so smart and this amazing writer, it's just stunning how oftentimes you say stuff without any understanding of basic fundamental research. Let me help you out, Tucker. Do you know who actually started the idea of the MLK Memorial? It wasn't Democrats. It wasn't white folks. It was Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the fraternity Dr. King was a member in. In fact, early on, shortly after his death, conversations began about needing some sort of national memorial for Dr. King. But if you look at the Washington Post story from August 25th, 2011, Tucker, you will discover that the idea really began at a dining room table at a home in Silver Spring, Maryland, not far from where you do your show every single night. It was a group of alpha men who sat around the table who said, we should honor Dr. King with a memorial on the National Mall. That's where the idea, Tucker, started. And it didn't just start there. Alphas led that whole effort. In terms, even Harry Johnson, who became the chair of the MLK Memorial Foundation, former general president of Alpha Phi Alpha. The $120 million that was raised, it was led by alphas, bringing in others, other fraternities and sororities, other individuals. That's where it came from. And Tucker, you and your whole aggrieved white male attitude, frankly, is getting really tiring, because the reality is you have nothing to be aggrieved about. The memorial to Dr. King wasn't even just about Dr. King. The memorial to Dr. King, he served as the symbol of the entire Black freedom movement. Tucker, why don't you actually go listen to his Nobel Prize winning speech, where he said in his speech, he said he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize on behalf of the entire movement. That's what he said. And so when we look at that memorial, it's not just for Dr. King. It's for Fannie Lou Hamer, Septima Clark. It's for Dorothy Cotton. It's for Hosea Williams and Fred Shuttlesworth and Reverend Jackson and Reverend Andrew Young and E.D. Nixon. And the list goes on and on and on. We could name a litany of civil rights leaders. That's what it's for. It's for those foot soldiers in Selma. It's for the folks who were beaten in Birmingham. It's for those. It's for a white pastor, James Reid, who was killed in Selma. It's for all of those individuals, Tucker, who forced America to be the nation it said it's supposed to be. See, there's a reason, Tucker, it's on the National Mall. Because in America, we hail Abraham Lincoln, and we hail Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and we hail Thomas Jefferson, and we hail all of these figures. But it took Dr. King and others, as he said, to redeem the soul of America, to force America to say, you're going to be the nation in reality that you are on paper. That's why the memorial is there. And see, I know it's rough for guys like you, Tucker. I know it's rough for you to have to drive by every single day and to see this monument to this Black man. See, I know it's real difficult, because the reality is this here. The monument is a reminder about the reality of race in America. The fact that it is the only memorial to an African American on the National Mall says a hell of a whole lot, Tucker, about America. It is also the only non-president with a memorial. Why is this important? Because, Tucker, guys like you really are uncomfortable with where America is going. Guys like you can't handle that in 25 years, America is going to be a nation that has majority people of color. See, guys like you can't deal with the fact that you won't get to make all of the decisions. See, I know it's tough. I know it's so hard because, I mean, you guys have been in control, white men. You've been in control of America for so long. I mean, you ran the Native Americans off of their land. And of course, then you put into place one of the most sadistic slavery institutions the world has ever seen. See, I know it's real tough because even after the Civil War and after Reconstruction, then you put in place Jim Crow, and then you ran that system and you control the monetary policies of America, the political policies. We know that 113 Supreme Court justices, 107 have been white men. See, I know things are just so tough for white men because we've had 45 U.S. presidents and 44 have been white men. See, I know it's just so hard for all you white guys now that you have to give up a few of the Fortune 500 CEO jobs in America because, oh my goodness, how dare somebody say, let's hire a white woman or a black woman or a black man or Latino. See, I know it's just so rough, and you guys don't get to control everything in America like you have done up to this point. But Tucker, guess what? You're going to have to suck it up. You're going to have to deal with the reality. Like I told the white supremacist Richard Spencer, we're not going anywhere. And I know that's hard for you, but you're going to have to deal with it because everywhere you turn, we're going to be there. At the store, at the mall, in your neighborhood, where your kids go to school, and we're also going to be at Fox News. Oh, yeah. More of us are going to be there, too. Because, see, you're not going to be able to survive only talking to white America, Tucker. You're going to have to learn how to talk to the rest of us, the folks who've actually made America be the nation it's supposed to be. Going to a break. When we come back, I'll have my panel. We'll talk about Donald Trump saying how tough things are for young men today. He wasn't talking about us. He was talking about young white men who've been accused of crimes as he was trying to defend Brett Kavanaugh. So we'll have that next on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and so looking forward to that conversation. Spencer Overton will be joining us, Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. Also, we'll have Liz. We just call her Liz. I'm gonna call her Lizzie. So we'll have Liz Copeland will be with us as well. And so let me do this here again. Let me go to this break. I'll do the reset, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about Donald Trump saying how tough things are for young men in America. This is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Spencer Overton, President, CEO, Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, Liz Copeland, founder and president of the Urban Conservative Project, and Teresa Lundy, principal at TML Communications. Glad to have all of you. Let's get right to it. Today, President Donald Trump chatted with the media outside of the White House as he was flying somewhere to give one of his crazy rallies. And, of course, he was asked questions about Brett Kavanaugh, and this is what he said in defense of Brett Kavanaugh.
What do you say to young men in America at this moment, and to women?
It's a very scary time for young men in America when you can be guilty of something that you may not be guilty of.
And to young women?
It's a very difficult time. What's happening here has much more to do than even the appointment of the Supreme Court justice. It really does. You could be somebody that was perfect your entire life, and somebody could accuse you of something. Doesn't necessarily have to be a woman, as everybody says, but somebody could accuse you of something, and you're automatically guilty. But in this realm, you are truly guilty until proven innocent. That's one of the very, very bad things that's taking place.
All right, let's go to our panel here. Now, I'm going to start this way, Liz. I want to start with you. Now, Donald Trump is absolutely right. You probably never heard me say that.
I have not.
Donald Trump is right that we live in a time where somebody can make an accusation and then they can assume that a person is guilty. Black folks know that very well, being accused of something they did not do. But this hypocrite who was talking today, maybe the national media should have reminded him of the Central Park Five.
Or the
when it was
Scottsboro
Donald
Nine.
Trump. When it was Donald Trump. When it was Donald Trump who took out a full-page ad who said the young men in the Central Park Five should get the death penalty. And during the campaign, when they were exonerated, they had been paid as a result. When he was asked, he doubled down and said he still believed it. So, okay, Donald Trump, are you defending young men who are only white men, or do you think, Liz, he cares about black and brown men who have been unjustly accused?
I think Donald Trump cares about Donald Trump. And this is his Supreme Court nominee. He's only focused on how this is going to impact him, not the Supreme Court, not the accusers, not the allegations at large. And I think it's quite hypocritical that he would make a statement like that, as you just pointed out, for the Central Park Five. But, you know, as an African-American Republican, I'm often a racial minority in my political community. And, you know, having accusations thrown at you, or allegation of being convicted for a crime that you didn't commit is not new to the black community. And I interrupted you, I apologize, but the Scottsboro Nine of 1931, all the way up to the young woman in Connecticut in 2016 who claimed that 2 black men raped her, and she was found guilty of lying, perjury, and got sentenced this year. So the reality is the Innocence Project says that 70% of convictions are due to eyewitness mistaken identity, right? Eyewitness misidentification. So this is something that black people, black Americans have seen over and over again. And now it's coming home to Donald Trump, but only because of a political appointee, not because of something that happened to his son, not because of something that happened to him. And as a woman of color who has black sons, this is something that I've known and I've been very attentive to since my children were born.
Spencer, I've never heard Donald Trump come to the aid of an African-American who has been unjustly accused, who's been released from prison for a crime that they did not commit.
Right, that's right, Roland. You know, a 15-year-old black boy, right, has to be perfect when he goes around the police and encounters authorities. But a 53-year-old Brett Kavanaugh gets to ask U.S. senators, did they black out? It's a double standard. He doesn't have the temperament. He doesn't have the integrity to serve on the Supreme Court.
Teresa?
I agree. And I think what we're seeing right now is Judge Kavanaugh frazzled. And because he's fragile, I think it's pretty much an actual shock, not only to him, but to the public at large, as a sitting judge of over 2 decades, worked in administrations, had so many appointments and so many rulings. I think this entire court hearing has proven to be, for him, an unjust system. And I think, you know, we kind of allow Kavanaugh to kind of go through these experiences to let him know, yes, you are a part of this America, and a part of that judgments that you've been giving to individuals over the year, it is now catching up to you. So now what are you going to do to reform? So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what we're going to do next, even this week, with the FBI investigation.
I am just absolutely amused by all the white men who are just all of a sudden just aghast at being accused of something, and being accused of sexual assault, being accused of being drunk. But now all of a sudden we have more and more people. Now you have a police report coming out about him getting into a bar fight and him being drunk. And again, I mean, it has been very amusing watching these white men who are just, oh my God. Yeah. I mean, how dare you? You know, he went to the private school, went to the Jesuit school, and went to Yale, and at least worked his tail off, all that sort of stuff. And it's like, how dare you challenge me? Right. I mean, that's really what this is. How dare you even question me? I'm a white man.
Yeah, it's the sense of entitlement that is there, Roland. And, you know, they try to blame it like it's some big conspiracy. Oh, it's the Clinton conspiracy here. You know, the Clintons didn't prevent Brett Kavanaugh from taking a lie detector test. The Clintons didn't prevent Mark Judge from coming forward and testifying under oath. There's not a conspiracy here. There's a sense of entitlement.
And let's be clear, Liz and Teresa. Christine Ford, she makes her allegations. Part of the issue when you make allegations against somebody, it's a question of the credibility of your story. Right. We are now seeing the number of people who are coming out and telling their story. John Dickerson of CBS, as a result of this, his wife told him about being sexually assaulted, and she didn't report to the police. Kirsten Powers just revealed for the first time when she was 15 years old, being sexually assaulted and some things being put in her drinks and waking up with a man on top of her and her shirt unbuttoned. Even Melanie Campbell, when we were doing our show from the Spirit of Democracy Awards, talked for the first time publicly about her being sexually assaulted by a coworker. So what's been happening is as a result of this hearing, it has caused a number of women. We've seen a spike in a number of women who are even calling sexual abuse lines as a result. And so this is actually causing America to have to confront what is happening to women in this nation.
Right, but I think it's interesting, Roland, because before Brett Kavanaugh's hearing, there was a drop in Republican women who actually supported his nomination. It dropped down to about 18 points or something like that. After his hearing, skyrocketed back up to 70% of Republican women still support the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh. And if I would be so bold to remind the viewers that after the Access Hollywood tapes, Republican women supported Donald Trump in large, and even after Roy Moore, who was accused of molestation and stalking of teenage girls in malls, Republican women still in droves came out to support them. So, you know, as a Republican, I'm looking around and I know women who have shared with me in private what has occurred to them growing up as, you know, teenagers. And so this issue about sexual assault is highly sensitive, and I'm very attuned to it as a woman and as a woman of color. But when you saw Brett Kavanaugh on Friday, you saw a bold display of white male privilege, the audacity that the nation questioned his word over a woman. And those 11 Republican senators sat there, and in my humble opinion, I believe they saw themselves in Brett Kavanaugh. They didn't see themselves, of course, in the accuser, maybe because of her gender, but they saw themselves in Brett Kavanaugh, and I believe that it's, I know I don't agree with the Democratic conspiracy theory at all, but I do believe that there were some things that happened along this nomination process that were hyper political on both sides of the aisle. But I think at the end of the day, the Republicans see Brett Kavanaugh and they see this president's nomination as a way for them to flex their political muscle, and I don't think they're going to take the issue serious.
All right, I got to go to our next topic. Eric Reid is back in the NFL. He was one of the NFL players who kneeled alongside Colin Kaepernick. In fact, he was the first one to join Colin Kaepernick. He was released by the San Francisco 49ers, spent all of training camp, did not get picked up by a team. But this week, he was picked up by the Carolina Panthers. And at his opening news conference, he wore the shirt, "I'm with Cap," and addressed the issue of why he kneeled. Check this out.
Next year will be 2019. It'll mark 400 years since the first slaves touched the soil in this country. That's 400 years of systemic oppression. That's slavery, Jim Crow, new Jim Crow, mass incarceration, you name it. The Great Depression, they come out with a New Deal. Black people didn't have access to those government stimulus packages. The New Deal set up what is known as the modern-day middle class. We didn't have access to those programs, the GI Bill, Social Security, home loans, none of that. So this has been happening since my people have gotten here. And so I just felt the need to say something.
Teresa, I love the history lesson Eric Reid gave to largely sports journalists who have gone alongside this silly narrative of Donald Trump of saying, well, it's all about the flag or the national anthem. I think even in that short bite there, folks were educated, and he said he is still going to find other ways to express himself. He may not kneel, but he said the Carolina Panthers also did not ask him not to kneel in order for them to sign him.
Absolutely. I think Eric Reid did what every athlete, entertainer, and musician is now doing with their platforms. They're not only using their voices to entertain, they're not using their bodies to perform. What they're doing now is actually putting themselves in position to actually impact. So as the Trump administration is actually removing the education and the history lessons from our curriculum, what Eric has proven amongst everybody else is now, look, now it's time to actually continue the education, starting from, the people that follow them. So again, using their platforms, using their hashtags, but more so using their voices to continue the education and to continue to strengthen our people. I think more so athletes, especially the ones of color, are noticing what's happening behind the field, right? And those are the untold stories we won't know because they're still on the field. So when they become retired, I'm interested in knowing what that tale looks like. But I think as of right now, as we look at kind of where America is taking us right now, it's taking us into a deep dialogue, a dialogue of education and a dialogue to inform and just really protect our community as a whole.
Spencer and Liz?
Yeah, I think it's just amazing in terms of young brothers and sisters really stepping up to the plate, not shucking and jiving, not just kind of entertaining here, but stepping up to the plate. And it's the symbolism, right, of the knee. It is the statement and the lesson of the history, but it's also the policy changes that we see these NFL players involved in on a state-to-state basis in terms of criminal justice reforms, voting rights restorations. We see tangible change as a result of their direct engagement.
Mm-hmm. I think it's
Liz, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that well, I agree. I agree that it's great that athletes and entertainers are taking a strong interest and participating in and using their platform to educate the masses. Like, we want everybody to be woke and stay woke. I think that it's interesting that he did highlight that he may not take a knee. And I think while he absolutely has a right, he has a constitutional right to stand, sit, kneel, do whatever he wants to do during that period of time, I support him having that constitutional right. I think that he is now pivoting away from the one thing that all of the critics of Colin Kaepernick had, and that was, you're disrespecting the flag or you're disrespecting the military. He's removed that, rebuttal from the conversation. And I'd be curious to know, to hear what opponents or detractors would have to say now.
Well, trust me, they will be running their miles. Before I go to my next piece here, Spencer, you have an event coming up, right?
I do. Thanks so much for asking. It will be at Wayne State Law School on Friday at 7:30. We're going to talk about racial equity and the future of work at the Damon J. Keith Center. I was fortunate enough to clerk for Judge Keith, and I'm excited to go back home to Detroit and talk about future of work and racial equity. How can we make a Wakanda in Detroit, in Gary, in Baltimore, in Atlanta, and in the black belt of the American South?
All right, then. All right, folks. So here's the deal. Yesterday, I was in Los Angeles, and I was there for a surprise 70th birthday party for a avid fan of mine. Her daughter, Sean Nance, hit me up and said that her mom is a ridiculous fan of mine, watching me at CNN, watching on TV One, News One Now, and then, of course, she watches the digital show as well. And so Sean has thrown through a week-long birthday party for her mom. It began on Thursday. Last night, we were at Nobu in Malibu, and this what happened. All right, folks, so we have finished dinner here at Nobu here on October, what is it, 1st? It's 1st? Okay, all the days run together because all the cities I've been in. So October 1st, and so, of course, we have the birthday girl herself, 70 years old. She didn't want everybody to hear the 70 part, but it's real. So then, of course, got to thank Sean for calling and inviting me, coming out to celebrate birthday. She was indeed surprised, was shocked, was totally floored by it. So.
you, don't I, everybody?
Yeah, you do.
I do. Oh, my God.
Happy birthday. You achieved exactly what you wanted.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, because she said, trust me, she's going to be absolutely shocked. She's going to fall out. Hopefully she don't bump her head by falling out.
How you do that? You came for my birthday?
Yes.
Wow. I don't know what to say. I am floored.
And so, were you surprised?
I couldn't have asked for anything more. It was a special birthday.
Well, I appreciate you being a huge fan, watching the show, and telling everybody else to watch the show as well.
Everybody watch. Even my office, that's all we watch. Roland Martin.
All right, then. So happy 7th birthday to Ms. Shelton. Hope you guys enjoyed. Of course, they have other events going on today as well. And so it was a great night. I sat next to her husband, who's also an alpha man, and spent nearly 3 hours having dinner with him and great conversation. So it was a great surprise. So, Sean, good job shocking your mother. All right, folks, don't forget, be like Ms. Shelton, support this show, support Roland Martin Unfiltered, watch the show, tell others to do so as well. We also want you to join our Bring the Funk fan club, so you can go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can actually sign up to be a part of our fan club. Our goal is very simple, to get 20,000 of our fans to contribute an average of $50 each over the course of a year in order for us to make this thing possible. And so we've had a number of folks sign up thus far, but we want you to join us as well. Spread the word. You can join up multiple ways, of course, PayPal, Square, and my man Keenan, he said there's another way. The Cash App. That's also now on the website as well. And so so you can use a debit card, credit card, PayPal, all those different ways. We want to make this thing happen, and so we're looking forward to it. Tomorrow I'll be back in Washington, D.C. I've got a huge meeting tomorrow with some potential investors for Roland Martin Unfiltered. So y'all be sure to pray for us as we, of course, have meetings also with advertisers, because we want this to be a dominant show, not only this year, but also in 2019, and position us to have our own voice in 2020 for the elections. All right, y'all, I got to go. Don't forget, we restream the show at 10 p.m., 2 a.m., 6 a.m., 10 a.m. You can also catch the audio and the video podcast by going to Google Play Store as well as iTunes. I want to thank our panel. Thank you so very much, Teresa, Liz, and Spencer. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to having y'all back on the show. I got to go. Y'all be sure to have a great, great evening. How?